A massive, tusked monster crashes into a courtyard, sending adventurers scattering in panic. A blonde brawler stands his ground, taunting the beast. "Hey, you pig bastard, come here!" As his party, including a grim-faced swordsman, looks on, the monster snarls, showing its tusks, but the swordsman is frozen in pure terror. He immediately turns tail and runs, earning a shout from his comrade, "Don't you run away!" In his panicked escape, he trips and falls hard while the others dash past him. He looks up from the ground as the hulking monster stumbles towards him. The beast looms over him, ready to deliver the final blow, and he can only scream, "Damn it!" This all takes place at the Magic Training Academy, a school that accepts students of any age so long as they can pass the entrance exam. And the fact that I, Tact Valen, age 30, am here is the ultimate proof of that. But with over 90% of the students being in their late teens, to them, he's nothing more than an outsider. Suddenly a voice cuts in. "Get out of the way, you're useless!" A sharp-haired student leaps forward, sword drawn. The blade finds its mark. As he strikes, a red-haired mage prepares a spell, leaving the beast completely stunned. "Leave the finishing blow to me!" a blonde lancer shouts, driving her spear through its throat. And just like that, the monster is decapitated. The trio of students who dispatch the beast with ease stand victorious. The red-haired girl rushes over to the pathetic man on the ground. "Tact-san, are you all right?" The red-haired mage leans over him, her hand glowing with healing magic as she asks if he's injured. "I'll heal you now," she says softly. With the spell complete, she stands, relieved that her precious classmate is unharmed. Tact can only stew in his humiliation, thinking, "She used me as a decoy, but at least the view was nice." As she walks away, someone in the crowd remarks, "Shari-san is so kind, healing him after that display." This triggers a flashback to several months ago, with Tact frantically running through the halls on his first day, desperate not to be late. He decides to ask for directions in the nearest room. Reaching for the handle, he calls out, "Excuse me, where is the first-year classroom?" But he throws the door open to find two girls in the middle of changing. "It's the wrong room." A flustered Tact immediately realizes his mistake, and his brain short-circuits into this creepy, sweaty grin, which immediately earns him a foot to the face. The blonde girl screams, "Pervert!" as her friend prepares a magic attack, yelling that he's a peeping Tom. He's instantly dogpiled by a mob of furious female students. Tact tries to plead his case, but they're not buying it, saying there's no way an old geezer like him is a student. The flashback ends, snapping Tact back to the present, where he's still reeling from the awful memory. An instructor arrives, praising the heroic trio for their excellent teamwork. A female instructor then steps forward, proudly introducing the top 3 students of her class, Sherry, Ramira, and Garam. She then turns on Tact, berating him for his pathetic display and for holding his comrades back. As punishment, she sentences the 30-year-old man to run 10 laps around the schoolyard. The instructor doubles down, threatening to add another 10 laps if he dares to talk back. As Tact begins his punishment run, Ramira asks Garam why the instructor seems to hate him so much. Garam reveals a juicy rumor. Apparently, Tact was a shut-in for 18 years until he turned 30. Ramira scoffs at the idea of him trying to relive his youth, while Sherry calls the pervy shut-in old man creepy. The school bell rings, signaling the end of the day. A weary Tact heads home, thinking about his little sister Marin, who's waiting for him. On his way, he passes by a familiar building, the Adventurers Guild. He recalls his original plan, to become an adventurer, not a student, so he could repay the kindness of his sister Marin and another girl. But as a 30-year-old with zero experience, every single guild turned him away. He rationalized that enrolling in the academy was the only way to get a degree and find a job, but his dream of being an adventurer wouldn't fade. He spots a guild he's never been to before and decides to try his luck. Inside, a guild receptionist asks how she can help him. Tact asks to register as an adventurer, and she calmly tells him to wait a moment. As she heads to the back, he realizes she's the beautiful receptionist he's heard about, Irina. And immediately, his mind drifts into a delusional fantasy. If only I were a handsome, popular guy. His imagination gets weird. Really weird. In his fantasy, a suave version of himself corners Irina, who desperately begs him to stop. She thinks that if he keeps being so aggressive, she won't be able to hold back her cries. Fantasy Irina lifts her skirt, blaming him for her state and demanding he take responsibility. But that's all in his head. In reality, Irina returns with his paperwork, completely oblivious to the drooling creep in front of her. To complete his registration, she asks him to demonstrate his best magic, saying even a simple spell will do. Tact looks uneasy, admitting, "The only thing I can use is sealing magic." Irina is unfazed. "Sealing magic? There are 2 types. Which one is yours?" She explains the first type, ability sealing, which locks away an opponent's magic or weakens their powers. And the second type, physical sealing, where you seal an opponent's body into your own. Tact confirms, "I'm the latter type." "I see," Irina says, asking the logical next question. "What kind of monster have you sealed and onto which part of your body?" His answer? He's never actually sealed anything before. Irina is at a complete loss for words. Breaking the silence, Irina asks if he still wants to take the registration exam, strongly suggesting he come back after getting some actual experience. But Tact's resolve is firm. He accepts. "Very well." Irina leads him to the courtyard where the test will be held. They head outside. Tact stops, getting his first look at his opponent. It's a cheerful 12-year-old girl with bandaged fists named Anado, who is also applying to join the guild. Irina explains the test, a bare-handed sparring match to gauge their abilities. Anado clarifies that winning or losing doesn't guarantee passing or failing. When Tact asks who the judge is, Irina reveals a surprising fact. She has the authority because she's the guildmaster's daughter. Anado lays out the victory conditions. The match ends when one person is knocked down or touches the ground. Anado gets into a fighting stance and realizes she hasn't even asked for his name yet. Tact introduces himself, revealing he's 30 years old, which earns him a surprised "old man" from Anado. She then cheekily asks if he's a virgin, which clearly hits a nerve. Anado keeps teasing, saying she's very experienced and can help him out if he wins. Irina, completely done with the banter, tells them to just start the match. And with that, the 2 square off. Tact makes the first move, telling her to respect her elders, but Anado effortlessly blocks his punch. In a flash, she's behind him, impressed that he could even track her movement. But she warns him that his composure won't last. Suddenly, she moves with blinding speed, creating afterimages that leave Tact completely bewildered. He screams in frustration. He can't land a single hit on the little girl. As he swings at empty air, he realizes his whole life has been one big miss. He failed at school, and he failed to join any adventurer guilds. Anado mocks him, asking if the old man is already out of breath from being toyed with by a kid. With a grin, she declares it's her turn to go on the offensive. She closes the distance in an instant. Grabbing him, she hits him with the one thing he can't dodge, the rumor that he was a shut-in. Floored by both the attack and her words, Tact can only lament that nothing in his life ever goes right. As she pummels him, Anado declares that Tact is probably the lamest guy in the entire town, and with that, he's out cold. Tact suddenly jolts awake, only to hear Irina coldly inform him that he's failed the exam and should leave. But Tact, refusing to accept reality, clenches his fists and demands another match. Irina, having reached her limit, slaps him clean across the face. She tells him to be reasonable, asking if he has any idea how pathetic he looks right now. She lets out an exasperated sigh. Fed up, she points to the door and tells him he's a nuisance and to just leave already. Utterly broken, tears of frustration stream down Tact's face as he curses his own weakness. Humiliated and defeated, Tact runs. He can't even argue back because he knows every single insult they threw at him was true. He finally makes it home. Wiping his face, he tries to compose himself so his sister won't worry. He opens the door and is greeted by his little sister, Marin. An old man at the table immediately notices Tact's red eyes and asks what happened. Tact frantically denies it, insisting that nothing is wrong. But Marin sees right through the lie, her own eyes welling up as she asks if he was bullied again. Suddenly, her demeanor completely changes as she grabs a massive warhammer, declaring that she'll take care of Garum, Sherry, and Ramira herself. Tact desperately clings to his sister's leg, begging her not to become a murderer, while the old man tries to hold her back. He's completely bewildered, asking how she even knows the names of his bullies. With tears in her eyes, Marin reveals that for months she's heard Tact muttering in his sleep, vowing to kill Garum. Her revenge fantasies get disturbingly specific, vowing to lick Sherry and grope Ramira before ending them. Tact is horrified to learn what he's been saying, but the old man wisely tells Marin that this is a problem Tact must solve on his own. Marin seems to understand, but her solution is even more extreme. She'll seal the demon Helcides inside her brother. Tact panics at the mere mention of the demon, but Marin insists it's the only way for him to get the power he needs. She explains that by absorbing the demon's skills, he'll gain its strength and begins dragging him away.
She leads him to a sealed church,
where Tact comes face to face with the terrifying demon itself. "Little girl, release me!" The demon Helcides growls, telling them to be silent. Marin explains that 5 years ago, this very demon tried to conquer the entire continent. In a flashback, we see that Marin herself was one of the exorcists who fought to bring it down. But since they couldn't destroy it, they were forced to seal it away using a royal treasure. With a disturbingly cheerful smile, she tells Tact his near-death state is perfect for the ritual and asks which body part he wants to seal the demon into. Tact starts to panic, realizing this is all moving way too fast. But the old man arrives, telling him not to worry. He explains that absorption-type sealing, the kind Tact uses, has very specific rules. Rule number 1, the seal can only be placed on a single part of the user's own body. And rule number 2, the target must be a living creature of the same system or type. If these rules aren't followed, the user will lose their sense of self and become a demon. In other words, sealing a demon is impossible for someone with no experience like Tact. But as Tact stares down the terrifying Helcides, something inside him shifts. He's tired of being a burden. He wants to repay the old man and Marin, and gaining power is the only way. This is his last chance to change. With newfound resolve, he declares his target, "I'll seal you, in my eye." He steps forward. Helcides scoffs at the boy's audacity, telling him to be silent. But Tact roars back, "Don't you dare shake my resolve." The demon screams in mock fury, "Seal an eye!" With a hand clapped over his eye, Tact unleashes the full force of his sealing magic. Marin and the old man are completely stunned, watching the terrifying ritual unfold. The world around Tact begins to fade, and he collapses to the ground. They rush to his side, frantically asking if he's okay. He clutches his eye, and when he opens it, his world has changed. He whispers, "I can see. Is this the power of the evil eye?" The ritual is over. But what he's seeing isn't just the world around him, it's some kind of strange interface. A system window pops up, informing him that by sealing Helcides, he has obtained multiple skills related to his eye. Tact is stunned. The system explains he's gained passive buffs like improved vision and more mana, plus a whole list of active skills that he can now use. He worries the text will be there forever, but the system clarifies the display can be turned on and off. And the best part? The mana cost for these amazing skills is incredibly low. As Tact grins with relief, Marin and the old man just see him muttering to himself, looking completely unhinged. He turns to them, asking what they think of the text floating in the air. But they can't see a thing, which makes Tact realize the interface is for his eyes only. He sweats, thinking that at least the system guide wasn't lying. Eager to test his new powers, he decides to try a safe one. Personal Appraisal Eye, which can reveal a person's stats and even their private thoughts. Marin looks at him blankly, saying, "You don't really need to appraise your own family, though." But Tact activates the skill anyway, and detailed stat sheets for Marin and the old man, Dinah, pop into his vision. He scans Dinah's profile and his eyes lock onto one unbelievable detail. Dating experience, 300 people. Tact is stunned silent. He can't help but shout, "Grandpa, you're insanely popular, aren't you?" Seeing him yell at nothing, Marin and Dinah prepare to restrain him, thinking he's lost control of the demon's power. Tact frantically waves his hands, insisting that he's perfectly sane and completely in control. Still concerned, Marin asks him to explain what's happening to him. He leans in, whispering that he has to be careful with this power, as using it incorrectly could lead to big trouble. The next day at the academy, the instructor announces they'll be conducting magic training. She begins her lesson, explaining to the class that there are 3 different ways to activate magic. The instructor explains the first method is the image type, where you visualize the flow of magic in your mind. The second is the chanting type, using specific incantations that can be freely arranged. And the third is a hybrid of the two. She holds up 3 fingers, explaining that each method affects the power and activation speed. But the biggest difference is mana consumption, warning that complete depletion can be fatal. With that, she announces that today's class will be to test everyone's magical aptitude and find their most efficient activation method. But Tact was a little distracted. The instructor immediately calls him out, telling him to stop staring so blatantly at her chest. Unfazed, Tact smirks to himself. "It's fine," he thinks. "I have the evil eye." He mentally pulls up his skill list, already planning how to use his new powers in class. Using his personal appraisal eye, Tact can now see the flow of magic within others, complete with a handy mana bar. The first student steps up, instructed to use the image type activation. She gathers her magic, and Tact watches intently as the energy swirls in her hands. She unleashes a powerful blast, and Tact's eye instantly calculates the cost, 4,000 mana. The crowd is impressed by her display. Next, she tries the hybrid type, which costs 3,000 mana, and finally the chanting type, which only costs 2,000. The other students applaud, remarking that the future of the continent looks bright with such talented mages. The instructor declares that the image type is best for her, but Tact knows the truth. His evil eye saw that the chanting type was the most efficient. But Tact can't just stand by and watch. He speaks up. "Excuse me, teacher, but I think she's more suited to the chanting type." A smug-looking student with glasses scoffs at him. The instructor gets defensive, declaring, "I learned this aptitude test from a famous magician." The glasses-wearing student decides to challenge Tact directly, conjuring a flame. This method may not be perfect, but its accuracy is high. He then unleashes a powerful stream of fire to demonstrate his own skill. Turning to Tact, he asks, "I just used all three methods. Tell me, which one am I suited for?" "It's the image type, isn't it?" He's trying to act cool, but a bead of sweat betrays his nerves. The instructor looks on, annoyed, as Tact calmly replies, "The mana consumption for your image type was clearly the lowest." With a confident smirk, Tact crosses his arms. "So, do you believe me now?" The girl from the first test is absolutely beaming, completely won over by Tact's incredible insight. She excitedly asks, "Tact, please tell me about my magic aptitude too." In an instant, Tact is mobbed by other students, all begging for his appraisal. Internally, he's ecstatic. This evil eye is the best. Getting a little too confident, he jokes, "Are you all okay with a creepy old guy like me talking to you? Just don't get pregnant and laugh about it later." Ignoring his terrible joke, a student gets into position. "Hey, make sure you watch me properly." She cheekily adds, "And what's under my skirt too?" Despite the distractions, his analysis is flawless. He tells another student, "You're a chanting type. The mana efficiency is leagues better than the other types for you." A new girl steps forward, politely asking, "Tact, may I be next, please?" But she's immediately shoved aside by another student yelling, "Hey, you demon, we were here first!" Tact can only sweat nervously, realizing he's become a little too popular, a little too fast. But the crowd parts for two very familiar faces, Ramira and Sherry, the top students who saved him yesterday. A student tries to keep the peace, telling everyone to wait their turn and not cause any injuries. But Ramira isn't having it, glaring at Tact and demanding, "Stop messing around and just tell us already." Flustered, Tact agrees. "Oh, okay. Since you both want to know, I'll appraise you at the same time." The two girls immediately strike a pose, ready for their evaluation. Tact activates his evil eye. He declares, "Ramira, you're an image type, and Sherry, you're a hybrid type." Sherry looks confused, muttering, "Really? I always thought I was a chanting type." But internally, Tact knows the truth. His eye confirms that, in reality, both of them are best suited for the chanting type. As they walk away, Ramira smirks. "There's no need to teach the truth to a nuisance classmate. This is just a little payback for yesterday." Unfazed, Tact turns his attention to the crowd and spots his next target, calling out, "I'll teach you the proper method too, Garam, but of course you'll have to wait your turn." Garam tries to turn the crowd against him, shouting, "Don't trust a word this guy says," but Tact just scoffs. "Oh? Are you jealous, Garam? How pathetic." But his words fall on deaf ears as an angry female student chucks her bag right at him. The crowd's loyalty is clear, as another one of Garam's cronies is immediately cornered and accused of being a pervert. The situation devolves into utter chaos, overwhelming even Tact himself, but a sly, wicked grin reveals the truth. He's enjoying every second of it. The school bell rings. Later, Tact reflects that he had the instructor recheck his appraisals for everyone, except Sherry and Ramira, perfectly preserving his credibility. He smirks to himself, thinking, "I've confirmed one thing. This evil eye is definitely useful." With his confidence renewed, he decides to return to the Adventurers Guild, where the receptionist Arena is already fuming at the thought of seeing him again. Tact walks up to the counter and asks to retake the exam, but Arena coldly shuts him down. "You got beaten to a pulp yesterday, just go home." Arena continues, explaining there's a 24-hour waiting period for re-examinations. She warns him sternly, "And if you fail this time, don't ever come back to the guild." Suddenly, a familiar voice chimes in. It's Anato. Hey, lame old man, you back for another beating? But Tact, filled with a new sense of power, calmly replies, I'm not the same man I was yesterday. With a sigh, Irina directs them to the courtyard for the test. In the courtyard, Anato crosses her arms, ready for a fight. All right, let the exam begin. She strikes a playful pose, winking at Tact. What's wrong, old man? Mesmerized by my sexiness? She immediately recoils, calling him a creep for staring. But Tact isn't just staring. He activates his new ability, Personal Appraisal Eye. The results are in Dating Experience 0. Tact internally scoffs, this brat dares to mock my age when she has 0 experience herself? A wicked grin spreads across Tact's face. He recalls her overwhelming speed from their last fight, thinking, Anato's speed is incredible. How can I possibly keep up? Anato smirks. Now that you've hesitated, I've decided I'm just going to beat you to a pulp. But Tact clenches his fist, a new resolve burning within him. And so, this old man had an idea. He suddenly strips off his armor, shouting, Weight reduction! Anato completely loses her cool, screaming, What are you doing? You're going to fight like that! He taunts her. Just as my evil eye saw, you're nothing but a precocious brat. Did you underestimate me, Anato? She snaps back, flustered. Of course I did. Who wouldn't? She tries to regain her composure, wiping sweat from her brow. But Tact isn't done yet, thinking, time to make her even more scared. Anato is so flustered she calls out for the only sane person around. Irina-san! In her panicked mind, Tact's shirtless form has morphed into a terrifying monster. She lets out a blood-curdling scream and tries to flee. Tact smirks. Well then, shall we begin, Anato? But a hand suddenly stops his advance. It's Irina, the guild receptionist, and she looks completely done with this circus. That's enough, she says firmly. She calls off the fight, but Tact is confused. Eh? But we haven't even done anything yet. But it's already over. Anato is on the ground, hands planted, officially surrendering. Irina helps the traumatized girl up, telling her to come inside for registration. Tact has won without throwing a single punch. A victorious grin spreads across his face. He throws his head back and lets out a triumphant roar, savoring his bizarre psychological victory. Internally, he gloats, I did it. It wasn't exactly a respectable method, but I'm finally an adventurer. He scrambles to grab his gear as Irina shouts, Hurry up before I revoke your pass. Back at the counter, she points to the registration form. Sign here. Irina asks if he could maybe put a shirt on, but Tact coolly replies that it's fine, since there's nothing to see anyway. She just stares, completely deadpan. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears, straddling him and declaring, This utter pervert needs to be disciplined. Are you getting excited being scolded by someone younger? Tact just thinks to himself, Whoops, my foolish son is acting up. Snapping back to reality, Irina offers a strained smile. Congratulations, Tact. You are now officially an adventurer. She begins to explain the next steps, mentioning they'll need to do a background check. But then she whips out a dagger, coldly stating, Actually, that's not necessary. If you cause any trouble, the entire guild will kill you. Tact stammers, That's barbaric. But Irina coolly informs him that the guild is granted special authority by the king to carry out such sentences. He's completely intimidated. With the threat delivered, she snaps back to her cheerful receptionist persona, asking if he'd like to take a quest today. Not missing a beat, Tact slams his fist down and shouts, Of course I will! Irina calmly explains that all newbies start with a simple herb-gathering quest. The request is simple. Bring back a sample of high poop grass. There's just one tiny catch. The location is the Forest of Death. And so Tact heads out. But something is bothering him. He returns to the counter where Irina clarifies a crucial rule. The quest is strictly for gathering. He can't just buy the herb or have someone give it to him. Irina suggests he could form a party, but Tact's confidence wavers as he realizes he doesn't have any friends. Dejected, he heads home, only to be found by his sister Marine. But then a brilliant idea hits him. He'll just ask Marin for help. He asks her to join his party, and she happily congratulates him on finally becoming an adventurer. She agrees, mentioning she was already heading there to subjugate a demon, but something feels off. Marin points out that the guild has issued a strict notice forbidding anyone from entering the Forest of Death. The horrifying truth dawns on Tact. This isn't a quest. Irina is trying to get him killed. Marin offers to march down to the guild and confirm the quest's legitimacy, but Tact quickly stops her. A new twisted idea begins to form in his mind. If he's the only one to take on this impossible quest, and actually succeeds, he'll be hailed as a legendary adventurer. Marin is not impressed, but her unimpressed look vanishes in an instant. As expected of my brother, please let me help you. And so, the siblings venture into the forbidden forest of death. Tact notes the high poop grass is in the deepest part, while Marin wonders if the demon she's hunting is nearby. She reassures him with a confident smile. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. You just focus on sealing the demon, brother. They press onward into the gloom. Suddenly a monster ambushes them. Tact is completely overwhelmed as the creature tackles him to the ground. Marin's expression darkens instantly. Get your hands off my brother. With a single brutal swing of her weapon, she roars, Get away from him! The monster's head flies clean off as its body is sent hurtling past a stunned Tact. She immediately turns to him, all concern. Brother, are you hurt? Tact, still processing his little sister's terrifying strength, can only thank her. Marin identifies the new threat. They are high-speed goblins. She explains their vile nature. These monsters have a strong lust, and they always kill the men first, so they can take their time with the women. As the goblins surround them, one sneers, How could you? Tact grips his sword. Enraged, he lunges forward, shouting, As her big brother, I won't forgive you for that. He brutally stomps on one of the creatures. He immediately turns, worried. Marin, are you all right over there? But he needn't have worried. Marin stands over a pile of instantly killed goblins. Sorry to make you worry, brother. I'm perfectly fine. A lone survivor timidly asks, by the way, what exactly is a high-speed goblin? Marin calmly explains that their name comes from the speed of their hip thrusts, much to Tact's horror. Eager to move on, they finally reach the deepest part of the forest. A voice from above mocks them, asking what an old man with a kid is doing in her territory. A powerful demon woman appears, introducing herself as Orion and claiming this area as her own. Unfazed, Marin steps forward, declaring she's an exorcist who has come to subjugate the demon. Orion glances down at her own chest with a look of pure annoyance. She glares at Marin, enraged that someone prettier and more developed has dared to show up. Sensing the sudden killing intent, Marin warns her brother to get back. Consumed by jealousy, Orion lunges forward, screaming, I'll kill you without a second thought. Orion's claw comes crashing down, but Marin blocks the savage blow with her staff without even flinching. The demon leaps back to create distance. But Marin is already on the offensive, unleashing a spell called 5 Thunder Orbs. A sphere of crackling energy shoots out, but Orion is incredibly fast, dodging it with ease. She zips across the battlefield. Marin calmly tracks her target and fires another blast that the demon narrowly avoids. Orion lands gracefully after the barrage. With a sharp-toothed grin, she smirks. Looks like you've got some skill. But internally, she's already on edge, thinking, this is bad, I need to create an opening, and fast. Meanwhile, Tact can only watch from the sidelines, completely overwhelmed. Suddenly, Orion's wicked gaze finds a new target. She switches focus to the weakest link, sneering, Hey, old man, must be nice to just stand there and watch. In an instant, she blitzes straight for Tact. Panicking, Tact desperately searches for a plan when he remembers a skill from his evil eye, Hypnotic Eye. The ability can put a target to sleep, but its success depends on magic power, distance, and the target's own alertness. With no time to think, he grits his teeth. It's my only shot, I have to do it! As Orion lunges, Tact stares her down and unleashes his Hypnotic Eye. But her demonic eye is completely unaffected. Gee, it didn't work? Tact realizes in horror as Orion grabs him. Orion has him pinned. Marin! Tact screams for his sister. In that instant, Marin's expression shifts to pure, unadulterated rage. How dare a filthy demon like you touch my brother? Her staff smashes forward with blinding speed, but Orion just barely manages to block the blow. The demoness retreats, shocked. She's so fast! Was she holding back this whole time? Damn you! She snarls, flying away with her hostage. Tact feels utterly pathetic, unable to do anything. But he refuses to give up, thinking, for now, I'll use my magic power sensing eye. Marin gives chase, unleashing a volley of magical projectiles. But Orion easily dodges them. her strategy clear. First, I'll kill the exorcist. The small fry is no threat. She flips in the air, a cruel smirk on her face. Huh, just as I planned. She's so blinded by rage, all her attention is on me. But while Orion gloats, she's completely forgotten about the small fry. Using his magic power sensing eye, Tact analyzes the flow of her energy, noticing it gathering and changing color in her core. He realizes what she's planning and screams, "Marin, watch out! She's going to use earth magic." Just as he says it, the ground beneath Marin erupts violently. But thanks to his warning, she's prepared, landing firmly amidst the shattering earth. Orion is in disbelief. What? How did he sense my magic? Marin takes a calming breath, her blind rage finally subsiding. Thank you, big brother, she says, her focus completely restored. I'm fine now. Crackling with immense power, she declares, I'll end this in one blow, 5 thunder orbs. Orion can only watch in terror as the devastating attack hurtles towards her. The 5 thunder orbs connect in a massive, blinding explosion. Orion is completely fried, her body convulsing from the raw electrical power. Tact rushes over, calling out, Marin, are you okay? But Marin is already thinking ahead. Brother, now's our chance, seal her. Steeling himself, Tact approaches the defeated demon. He pins her head to the ground and unleashes the power of his eye, shouting, Seal an eye. The sealing ritual begins. A new system notification appears. By sealing Orion, Tact has acquired a host of new skills: paralysis eye, numbness sensation eye, health eye, libido eye, and even earth manipulation. Did you learn any new skills? Marin asks. Tact confirms he did, adding, Now thanks to you, all that's left is to find the hippopo grass for our quest. But Marin warns him they can't afford to relax. When the sun sets, the forest itself will come for their life force. Tact isn't worried. He points to his eye, boasting that his new enhanced vision will make finding the grass a piece of cake. He then turns and sincerely thanks Marine. He admits that if he'd come alone, he would have died for sure, calling her a sister who's far too good for him. His heartfelt praise makes her blush. Composing herself, she walks ahead, reminding him not to let his guard down until the quest is truly over. And just like that, Tact spots it, the hippopo grass. Now we just have to get this back safely, and the quest is complete, he declares. But Marin suddenly stops, sniffing the air. Brother, do you smell something? She stomps her foot, pointing towards the source. It's coming from this direction. Her senses are screaming danger. Following the scent, they come across a truly unbelievable sight. A colossal winged beast lying motionless in a clearing. Tact is speechless, but Marin calmly identifies the creature. It's a dragon, and it's not alone. From behind the massive body, a much smaller creature emerges. It's a baby dragon, letting out a weak and frightened cry. The siblings can only stand and watch as the tiny creature guards its fallen parent. A dragonet, Tact murmurs. So it was a parent and child. He realizes dragons are supposed to be extinct on this continent. This family must have crossed the sea to get here. Looking closer at the massive wound on the parent's side, he understands. After being exhausted from the journey, Orion must have finished it off. The poor dragonet has been faithfully staying by its mother's corpse this whole time. Seeing the orphaned creature, Tact's heart goes out to it, and he gently reaches out his hand. But the terrified dragonet snaps, biting down hard on his fingers. Marin, ever the expert, gives her brother some one-point advice. Approaching from above will only scare it. She demonstrates the proper way, offering her hand gently from below. Having shown him how it's done, Marin's face suddenly darkens as she raises her warhammer, ready to put the creature out of its misery. Tact screams, barely managing to hold back her arm. That's when he notices the dragonet isn't running away, because it's trying to tend to its mother's wounds, licking them clean. He asks Marin if she can heal it, but she shakes her head. Her powers only work on humans and could even harm the baby dragon. Worse, she reminds him that they're running out of time. They can't stay in this dangerous forest after sunset. With time running out, an idea suddenly sparks in Tact's mind. The hippopo grass is a medicinal herb. He looks from the herb to the grieving dragonet, a desperate plan forming. Apologizing to Marin for what he's about to do, he walks right up to the hostile creature. The dragonet snaps, but Tact endures the bite, calmly telling the baby he'll change his eye color to match its mother's to help it feel safe. He activates a new skill he gained from Orion, the color light eye, allowing him to change the color of his iris just by imagining it. The dragonet freezes, its eyes wide with shock. Its aggression instantly vanishes as it lets go of Tact's hand. With the baby finally calm, Tact offers it the healing hippopo grass. But as this tender moment unfolds, Marin's voice cuts through the silence, recalling a dark memory of being sold off by her own parents. She remembers how Tact found her after she escaped the slave traders, giving her a warm meal when she had nothing. His kindness, she thinks, saved me from a cruel and inescapable fate. Tact just smiles, telling her he only helped because she was beautiful. Back in the present, the dragonet happily chomps down on the herb as Tact cheers it on, promising it'll be flying in no time. With their job done, Tact waves goodbye, but Marin warns him they need to leave immediately as the forest grows restless. The little dragonet watches them go, confused, and just like that, they turn and run. As they sprint through the trees, Tact panics, asking if they can even make it out of the forest before it's too late. But Marin suddenly stops dead in her tracks. A strange, new voice echoes through the woods, muttering that it needs to clean up some wood chips. Without a second's hesitation, Marin whips her weapon around, ready for a fight. "Brother, follow me!" she yells, taking charge. She bolts, leaving Tact standing in place. But from above, dark, thorny vines shoot down towards them. Marin shields Tact, grimly stating that her mace alone won't be enough to fend this off. She considers using a more powerful attack, the Goraidama, but worries she might not have enough magic left. Tact looks on, shocked. His eye catches another movement and he screams, "Marin, to your side!" Her head snaps around. "Damn it!" she cries, realizing she's been flanked. The desperate situation triggers a memory of their training days. Even back then, they had each other's backs, with Marin shouting, "Brother, speedy wolves from behind!" Tact analyzes the threat. 3 of them at once. My sleep eye skill won't be fast enough. He considers another, more drastic option, the soil manipulation eye, a skill that lets him control the earth itself. The voice of the sealed demon Orion echoes in his mind, taunting him. "But I've never actually seen you use this skill." Tact's eye glints with confidence. "I have." He slams his hand to the ground, unleashing the power of the soil manipulation eye. In an instant, the very ground beneath the wolves turns to mud, trapping them completely. He looks back with a grin. Seeing is believing, isn't it? Snapping back to the present, Tact uses that memory as a strategy, yelling, "Marin, get down, can you get lower?" Marin struggles against the thorny vines, apologizing. "Sorry, brother, the more I try to move..." The vines pull tighter, causing her to let out a pained gasp. Seeing his sister in distress, Tact panics, shouting, Okay, I'll figure something out." He draws his sword, deciding on a direct approach. "First, I'll just cut the vines." But as he slices a vine near her legs, Marin tumbles into a very compromising position. Tact immediately averts his eyes, stammering, "Sorry." He quickly gets back to work, slicing another vine. But the severed plant sprays a strange liquid all over her. Marin can only look on, completely flustered. She realizes the horrifying truth, crying out, "Brother, every time you cut one, the vines just dig in deeper." Marin struggles against the vines, pleading, "But we have to hurry." The memory of their training exercise flashes through his mind. Back then, they were surrounded by more and more wolves. Tact remembers the feeling of being cornered, muttering, "Damn it," from above, too. And just like in his memory, help arrives from the sky, but it's not a wolf, it's the dragonet. They can't believe their eyes. The baby dragon from before? In the next moment, Tact is holding his sister, freed from the thorny prison. Marin looks up at him, blushing. "Thank you, brother." Their little savior looks on proudly. With the dragonet perched on his shoulder, Tact realizes the little guy came back to save them. "You helped us! Thank you!" But this isn't the first time they've been cornered by a pack of speedy wolves. Tact knows they can't outrun this new threat. If we keep running, we'll be caught, and Marin's mace is at its limit. A desperate plan forms in his mind. "I'll blast us out of here with my evil eye. Both of you, hold on tight." Marin is shocked. "What are you planning to do?" He remembers a past training exercise, activating his soil manipulation eye to deal with a similar threat. Back then, he used it to trip up his pursuers. But this time, he's aiming it right at his own feet. He launches them into the air like a human cannonball. They crash land in a heap. But they're finally out. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Tact sighs in relief. Somehow, we made it out of the forest. Tact is still paranoid, hoping the horrors of the forest won't follow them when the dragonet tumbles right off his shoulder. He looks at the little creature, grateful. "You really saved us back there." Since it only says Q, Tact decides to name it just that, and officially invites the little guy to come live with them. And Q absolutely loves it. Marin gently pets their new companion, thanking it for the rescue. Tact, meanwhile, is just taking in the scenery. With their new friend in tow, they head back into town. He tells Marin he's going to report the quest's completion to the guild. But waiting for him is the malicious receptionist, Irina, who looks less than thrilled to see him alive. Her eyes narrow, spotting the strange creature peeking out of his coat. Tact plays it cool, introducing the creature as Q, the winged lizard, which he found in the forest. But Irina's icy demeanor instantly melts, and she shyly asks if she can pet Q-chan later. Tact is completely baffled by her 180-degree personality shift. He gets back to the mission, lying that he couldn't find the hippopo grass. Irina smugly dismisses his failure, saying that's just how it goes for newbies, and prepares to close the quest. But just as she does, Q starts wriggling in Tact's coat. It pops out with a happy little chirp, and proudly presents the hippopo grass, completely blowing Tact's cover. Irina is speechless, realizing he not only survived, but found an herb that shouldn't even grow in that forest. Q just looks up, adorably oblivious to the chaos it just caused. Irina is completely love-struck, her icy demeanor shattered. Flustered, she turns away and stammers that she'll prepare the reward. Tact just smiles as Q happily chirps, "Thank you." Outside, Marin asks how things went, while Q does a celebratory splat on the ground. With a triumphant grin, Tact shows off a heavy bag of coins. He explains to Marin that their first quest was a success entirely thanks to Q finding the herb. To celebrate, they decide to buy some grilled snacks from a street vendor. But Marin suddenly stops him, telling him to wait. Tact insists, declaring this is the first step in repaying his family for their kindness. Her protest is immediately betrayed by a massive growl from her own stomach. A bright red blush spreads across Marin's face as she apologizes for being rude. With snacks in hand, Tact suggests they eat while they walk. Without hesitation, she takes a massive bite. She admits that eating while walking is bad manners, but it's just too delicious to resist. Tact and Q are all smiles, enjoying the moment. They continue their walk through the city. The next day, the school bell rings, signaling the start of classes. But Tact isn't heading to class. He's using his mana perception eye to find a secluded spot, knowing the academy's dense mana is perfect for recovery. He tries to convince himself he's not just skipping because class is too difficult. He insists he's not hiding or running away, but a familiar voice taunts him, asking if his mouth is just for decoration. Tact glances over, annoyed. His attention is suddenly caught by a commotion nearby, where a group of girls are ganging up on a student with her bangs covering her eyes. The short-haired girl smirks, identifying her accomplice as Ramira the Lancer. The victim, Cecile, is so terrified she can barely think straight. Watching from a distance, Tact immediately sizes up the situation. No matter how you look at it, this is a classic case of bullying. The bullies bombard Cecile with insults, calling her gloomy, timid, and dirty. Ramira scoffs with twisted logic. "I'm trying to be nice to you because you look so pathetic. What's with that attitude?" Her friends chime in, demanding that Cecile apologize to Ramira. The situation escalates as Ramira presses the tip of her spear to Cecile's chin, threatening to help her kneel. But just then, a boot steps firmly into the scene. Tact steps between them, hand out to stop Ramira. "Looks like you're having fun," he says coolly. "Mind if I join in?" Ramira sneers. "Well, if it isn't the old man, you should get lost for your own good." Tact stares back, completely unfazed. "And if I don't? Are you going to continue what you were doing?" He then leans in with a bizarrely friendly smile. "You've been getting a little cocky in class lately, haven't you? We're kindred spirits, you and I." His words completely enrage Ramira and her friend, who scream, "Old man, do you want us to make you lick the dirt?" Ramira just smirks, readying her spear. In a flash, she lunges forward, pinning Tact to the ground with the shaft of her weapon. "I'll gladly accept your cheap provocation." She glares back at her friends, ordering them, "Don't you dare interfere." Pinned and surprised, Tact gasps, "That was so sudden!" But even on the ground, his power is already at work as his personal appraisal eye activates, analyzing all of Ramira's skills. So she's a physical fighter who barely uses magic, Tact thinks. My evil eye can see right through her attacks. Vanish. Enraged, Ramira unleashes her skill, shattering spear thrust. But Tact is ready, activating his soil manipulation eye to raise a wall of earth. Her spear tip shatters on impact, flying harmlessly away. He smirks. "All right, now that spear is useless." Furious, Ramira kicks the wall aside, shouting, "You little brat!" She launches herself into the air, spinning for a powerful kick. But Tact easily dodges as her attack smashes into the pavement. Her friends just laugh. "You idiot! Did you really think she'd stop just because you broke her weapon? You're just a helpless old man." Tact stomps his foot on the ground. He plans to use his soil manipulation eye to create an opening and finish her with a paralysis attack. But Ramira is far from finished. To Tact's surprise, he's suddenly forced to dodge. Sharp earthen spikes erupt from the ground, flying at him in a non-stop barrage. Ramira has taken control of his own technique, taunting, "What happened to all that bravado from before?" She forms a new spear from the debris and leaps into the air, shouting, "This will decide it!" Tact looks up, completely cornered. He desperately activates his soil manipulation eye, throwing up another wall to defend himself. But Ramira's attack is aimed strangely. "Where are you aiming, old man?" she yells. She completely misses, crashing into the ground behind him with her flash spear thrust. Cecile cries out his name in worry. Ramira stands over the fallen Tact, scoffing, "So you managed to block that with an earth wall." She looms over him, readying her spear. "I'll make sure you're bedridden in the hospital for a good long while." But as she gloats, Tact's eyes go wide. Something flutters past his face. Are those panties? A moment of pure, unadulterated horror dawns on Ramira's face. The proud lancer freezes solid, blushing furiously as she clutches her skirt in embarrassment. This is the opening he was waiting for. Now! In a flash, Tact is right in her face, his gaze locking onto hers as he unleashes a new power. Paralysis Eye! Ramira's body locks up, a choked cry escaping her lips as the paralysis takes hold. She collapses to the ground, completely immobilized. Tact breathes a sigh of relief. Somehow, that actually worked. On the ground, Ramira can only glare up in disbelief, muttering, "This by a fluke." But Tact's internal monologue reveals his genius strategy. To show off the difference in our skills, she barely dodged every one of my attacks. And thanks to that, I was able to aim for her panties, a victory for the pervy old man. Her friends rush to her side, completely bewildered. "Ramira, are you okay?" Tact watches them silently. As they try to help the paralyzed lancer escape, Tact suddenly calls out, "Wait!" But he doesn't address them. Instead, he walks right past the fallen bully and leans in to give Ramira's friend a chilling warning. "If you bully Cecile again, I won't be so merciful next time." As he turns to leave, Cecile rushes after him. She catches up, bowing deeply. "Tact-san. Thank you so much. You've saved me again." Tact seems confused. Again? She's referring to a time during magic training when Ramira blasted her with magic, and Tact apparently intervened back then too. Tears well up in her eyes. She looks up at him and asks, "How can I stop being bullied? You used to be bullied too, but not anymore. What changed?" Tact considers her question. He looks down at her with a newfound confidence and gives her some simple advice. Have faith in yourself. The two stand in the now empty courtyard. But as soon as he says it, Tact cringes internally, thinking he sounded way too cool for a 30-year-old man picking on a kid. His advice, however, is taken with the utmost seriousness by Cecile, who starts scribbling it down in a notebook. She then immediately rips the page out, declaring she'll destroy it right away. Tact is baffled, but Cecile explains that because she's shy, she's destroying the evidence. He can't help but find her a little amusing. Deciding his work here is done, Tact prepares to leave. But Cecile quickly stops him. Blushing furiously, she points out that they're in the same class, so he doesn't need to be so formal with her. She fidgets nervously. Tact grins and cheekily suggests, "In that case, why don't you call me Ta-chan?" And Cecile's brain completely short-circuits. Blushing, Cecile shyly tries out the nickname, Ta-chan? The name hits Tact like a ton of bricks. He suddenly bursts into tears, completely baffling Cecile. Tact collapses, dramatically wailing that he's just so happy to have a female friend that his old man tear ducts have given out. Later that evening, we find Cecile soaking in a bath at her home. She reflects on the whirlwind of events that happened today. She thinks back to Tact's advice, wondering just how she's supposed to gain confidence in herself. Her mind drifts to the cruel words of her bullies, calling her a gloomy woman. But that memory is replaced by the image of Tact's cool and reassuring words. Flustered, she sinks completely under the water. She leaps out of the water. She knows that if she stays this timid, she'll just get bullied again. With a new resolve, she grabs a pair of scissors. She steels herself, thinking she needs the courage to change who she's been up until now. Her grip tightens. She raises the scissors to the bangs that have hidden her face for so long. I need to be brave, she thinks, her eyes filled with a new fire. The cut hair falls to the floor, a symbol of her decision to change. The next day, Tact looks less than thrilled. He's back in the classroom, but finds the atmosphere completely suffocating. He can feel Ramira's glare boring into the back of his head. As he tries to focus on recovering his magic, a whisper cuts through the tension. Hey, who's that? The entire class turns to see a girl they don't recognize, captivated by her beauty. She walks straight through the stunned crowd, and with a shy smile greets him, "Good morning, Tarkon." The friendly nickname sends Tact flying. He stares in disbelief. Cecile? The rest of the class is just as shocked, realizing the timid girl they knew has completely transformed. Two male students immediately rush to her side, accusing Tact of using some trick on her. But they're shoved aside by a tough-looking student who steps in to intervene. The tough guy smirks at Cecile, asking her to ditch Tact and go on a date with him instead. But he's immediately silenced when Cecile grabs him and sends him flying with a powerful throw. She pins him to the floor, declaring, "I won't forgive anyone who hurts my friend." Tact is speechless. He watches in awe, realizing the once timid girl is a powerhouse with a host of incredible skills. Using the downed student as a stepping stone, she walks over to Tact and shyly asks him a question. She wants to know if he'll have lunch with her, holding out a homemade bento she prepared just for him. The rest of the class explodes with jealousy, calling him a perverted old man. But Tact just smirks, loving every second of it. Now the two of them stand together under the intense, burning glares of their classmates. From the doorway, Ramira and her friend watch in disbelief. During lunch break, the two enjoy their meal together. Tact is blown away by how good the food is. He thanks her, feeling like a real student for once. Cecile smiles, admitting she feels the same way. He then asks if she's free after school to let him repay her. The thought makes her blush, as it sounds a lot like a date. Tact is absolutely thrilled that she's agreed. He offers to treat her since he just got paid for his first quest. And so, after class, the two head out into town. As they walk, Cecile reveals a surprising truth about her past. She was trained by her father and is strong, but simply hates fighting. Tact tries to find a place to eat, but the mood has shifted. Cecile suddenly stops, saying goodbye and promising to see him tomorrow. As she walks away, Tact can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. He knows following her would be crossing a line, but his worry for his new friend is too strong to ignore. He decides to follow her just to make sure she's safe. He watches from the shadows as she darts into a dark alleyway. Confused, Tact follows her into the back streets of the city. But his stealthy approach is cut short by a hooded figure. Before he can react, Cecile leaps into action, sending the attacker flying down the alley. She apologizes, realizing her pursuer noticed Tact because of her. The assassin reveals his orders: capture the girl alive and eliminate any witnesses, calling Tact's presence bad luck. He immediately lunges, throwing a volley of daggers at Tact, but Cecile is already moving to intercept the attack. She deflects the blades with her gauntlet, protecting her friend. She prepares a counterattack, her fighting style clearly unique. The assassin unleashes a strange, segmented weapon. In an instant, it wraps around Cecile, restraining her. Tact can only cry out her name in shock. With his target captured, the assassin turns his attention back to Tact. Cecile struggles, yelling for Tact to run and save himself. But the assassin recognizes him, calling out his full name. He declares that this makes killing Tact an even greater priority. The whip-like weapon comes crashing down, slamming into the stone pavement, right where Tact had been standing. The assassin reveals his trap, a web of wires strung across the alley, giving him complete mobility. As Tact grips his sword, the assassin warns him not to cut the lines, because they're connected directly to Cecile, and any damage will be transferred to her. With Tact's options limited, the assassin leaps into the air. He lands perfectly on one of the wires like a tightrope walker. From his high perch, he looks down on his cornered prey. But Tact has a plan, stomping his foot to activate his soil manipulation eye. To his shock, the power doesn't work. The assassin mocks him, explaining that there's no soil to control on the city's stone streets. With Tact's trump card neutralized, the assassin dives in for the kill. The assassin spins on his wires, completely in his element. He pulls a wire taut, forcing Cecile into a helpless, restrained position. She tells Tact not to worry about her, despite the situation. But Tact's attention is momentarily distracted. Our boy can't help but take a quick, flustered glance. The assassin capitalizes on his distraction, appearing instantly and drawing blood. He mocks Tact, explaining that his hood makes any eye-based powers useless. With Tact's main weapon neutralized, the assassin prepares to strike. He lunges, confident that Tact is no match for him in this urban environment. The assassin leaps from his perch, ready to press his attack. He flips through the air with deadly grace, landing right in front of a cornered Tact. Our boy is sweating, his options dwindling fast. But he has one last desperate idea, stomping his foot again. Turns out soil manipulation doesn't work on cobblestone, who knew? The assassin scoffs at his futile struggle. He raises his blade, declaring that this is the end for Tacty. But a sudden, confident smirk from Tact stops him cold, just as Cecile breaks free and delivers a crushing stomp from above. The assassin is slammed face first into the pavement. He can't believe she was able to move, but it was all part of Tact's brilliant plan. He had tossed his sword to Cecile. Using a quick earth-based distraction to hide the throw, she used the blade to cut herself free from the wires. And with that, the assassin is completely neutralized. Cecile apologizes for dragging him into this, but Tact just shrugs it off. Just then, the city guards arrive, drawn by the noise. Tact smiles, noting their perfect timing. As they hand the assassin over to the guards, a group of robed officials arrives on the scene. They're led by a high-ranking priest. A man with large earrings steps forward, telling the assassin he's lucky to be alive. The captured man can only agree, knowing the alternative was far worse. But the earring-wearing man's expression remains cold and unforgiving. The assassin realizes that failure is a fate he cannot escape. In a final desperate act, he takes his own life, shouting for them to get back. His face is a mask of pure terror in his final moments. Cecile can only watch in horror. Tact is completely stunned by the sudden, brutal end to the confrontation. But another hooded figure suddenly lunges at the man with the earrings. With a sharp twist, he disarms the attacker, sending their hidden blade clattering to the ground. The second assassin can only stare in shock. The earring-wearing man grabs their face, coldly reminding them of the price of failure. He brutally makes his point, showing no mercy. A city guard rushes over, asking if the priest is all right. The man dismisses the concern, telling his own men to be more careful next time. He then puts on a show of remorse, saying it pains him to hurt others. But a cold, calculating glint in his eye reveals his true nature. The priest approaches, asking if they're both unharmed. He offers them a blessing before taking his leave. As the robed figures depart, Tact and Cecile are left alone. Tact notes that the man seemed to be about his age. He then turns to Cecile, asking what's troubling her. She reveals a horrifying truth about the man they just met, identifying him as Kehi, the leader of the Grimoire Order. Tact can't believe what he's hearing. Later, as he walks her home, the weight of the situation hangs in the air. Cecile stops, insisting she can't drag him any deeper into her problems. But Tact can't just let it go. He shouts that he won't lose his new friend over this. Back home, Marin asks Dinah about the Grimoire Order. Tact explains that his appraisal eye revealed something. Marin excitedly explains their popular public image. But Tact cuts in, recalling the assassin's attack. The mood in the room instantly shifts. They realize he's been dragged into a dangerous situation. The Grimoire Order is an evil organization, and opposing them is part of their duty as exorcists. Dinah sets down his cup, the mood turning serious. He explains the Grimoire Order has followers in every social class, so Tact will need more than just his current power to face them. Just then, Marin arrives with a freshly captured demon in tow. She shoves it at Tact, offering him a chance to seal it and gain new skills. The next day, they're dispatched to a mansion plagued by a demon. Marin explains the two exorcists sent before them never returned. But as they approach, their carriage suddenly comes to a halt. The driver informs them the horses are too terrified to go any further. Left with no choice, the trio disembarks to continue on foot. But an invisible barrier suddenly slams into them. Marin quickly tells the driver to flee to safety. With their ride gone, the trio steels themselves and rushes toward the mansion. At the entrance, they're greeted by a woman with glasses, the master of the estate. She comments on their rather rough welcome. She then wonders aloud if this is how humans normally greet each other. The trio is completely baffled by her strange demeanor. The woman reveals the two exorcists who went missing are now her hostages. Tact trusts what his evil eye is telling him, knowing there's no point in talking. But the woman calmly invites them to sit and discuss things over a meal. The woman sips her drink, saying she wants to make a deal. She gestures to her hostages, asking if they'll just let her go. With a sly grin, she offers to return the valuables she's taken. Dinah warns Tact not to fall for her obvious provocations. She then presents one of her hostages, a captured exorcist. The demon gets uncomfortably close to the terrified woman. The trio can only watch in horror and disgust. She claims her actions are born from an appreciation for beauty. Her fangs appear as she calls beauty a necessity for her life. Having made her point, she invites them to state their desires. Dinah loses his patience, calling her out for her selfish demands. but her gaze falls on Tact and Marin, wanting to add them to her collection. She asks what they're willing to offer for the hostages' lives, but Dinah is done talking, unleashing a fiery attack of his own. The sudden move shocks Tact and Marin as Dinah vows to save the exorcists. The hostage flinches in terror, but the demon remains completely unfazed. Her name is Alord, and her powers are clearly blood-related. With a wicked grin, she declares that negotiations have officially failed. She immediately sends the two captured exorcists flying right at him. He's stunned, realizing she's turned the hostages against them. Dinah struggles against the possessed exorcists who claw at him. He pushes them back, realizing they are merely puppets under the demon's control. Alord, the demoness, smirks, declaring the dying men are of no use to her. Dinah is quickly overwhelmed, falling to the ground under the relentless assault. The door to the room slams shut, trapping the combatants inside. Marin and Tact rush forward, with Marin expressing worry for the old man. Alord, the demoness, makes a disturbing comment about sensing their innocence. Marin is enraged by the demon's words, while the other exorcist is clearly flustered. Alord continues to taunt them, expressing her desire for their pure blood. Marin and Tact charge forward, refusing to let the demon have her way.